So, welcome. We're going to carry on where we left off last week. We're going to, I'm going to show you how to cut lino, in case you want to do that, because I said I was going to do it last week and then I didn't. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually show how to do it, so that if there are people watching the recording and they don't have an iPad, you can do what we're doing, but with lino.
I'd be interested to learn.
Yeah, well, we can do that first. And then I'm going to do a little bit more of getting to know Procreate, just show some of the other functions that we didn't look at last week. And then we'll make a stamp with the fox image. And we should have plenty of time to do all of that. And I'll show you the easy way of making a stamp, because last week we had to do all the settings. But once you have a digital stamp in Procreate, it's really easy to replace it and you don't need to do all the settings again. You just duplicate a stamp you've already got. But I'll show you how to do that. We'll do that once we've done our fox. So I'm going to start with how to cut lino. So this is soft cut, and you can get it in really big sheets. This is obviously quite a small sheet, but you can get it in big sheets. And if you buy this kit that I showed you last week, you get, so what you get in that is a lino cutter. You get the blades for a lino cutter. I think there's 5 blades in here. And you get 2 of these little stamps. So it's a good way to start out, because if you get this, then afterwards all you need to do is buy soft cut. You've got your blades already. You don't really need to do anything else. But these stamps, this all comes, let me just show you. It all comes fastened together like this. And the idea of the stamp is, once you've carved it, you can take the sticky off the back, put it on there, and then you've got a stamp that you can stamp with. So, I mean, I've never done that, but it's quite useful if you're just starting out. You can also, so I've got a whole box full of small stamps that I've carved into little erasers like this, because you can get packs of these much cheaper than soft cut. And they're quite fat, so you don't really need a handle on it or anything. You can just stamp with it because it's easy to hold. So I recommend, if there's something quite simple that you want to do, just seeing if you can get some of these fairly large erasers. There's lots of different kinds outside about.
What's that one called? I can't quite read the name.
This one is from a company called Paper Chase, which actually I don't think exists anymore. Whenever I see a reasonably big eraser, I'll buy it, because I know I can use it for a stamp. So I'm not a printer. I don't do very much stamping, but mostly I use erasers. And I've occasionally used larger sheets of soft cut. But so I'm going to show you, I didn't show you properly how to put this together last week. So once you've taken this out, if you buy a lino cutter on its own, then it will come like this, but with a set of blades. So it just looks like that. There are all different kinds of blades. So there's a curved one that I've never used. I don't really know what it's for. But there are also, these ones are just, see if I can get that in focus. Let me try and just focus it. No, it's not going to cooperate. It's easier if I'm a bit further away. Basically, they just have different blade ends. They're just, this is the very narrow one. In fact, there's a narrower. So there's a very narrow one, and then there's quite wide. So this one here has a much wider blade end. You can tell the blade end from the other end, because you can see, when you've got them in your hand, you can see the blade edge. The other side is round, and the round end, you basically, this has a little round, you can see there, little kind of round space, and you just push it in, and then you fasten up that and it won't move. So really important to fasten that quite tightly, just for safety. So I'm going to put in the middle-sized blade. And then, so for soft cut, obviously we're not doing it digitally, so we have to have a way of putting our image on the soft cut. So I put an article on Mighty Networks which shows you different ways of doing it. You can just draw. So this, I just drew on it with a Sharpie. You need the image ideally in black, because then it's really easy to see as you're carving. So I just drew this on here. But if you've got something that you've drawn that you want to transfer onto soft cut, I think the easiest way is using tracing paper and carbon paper. So you just trace the image and then put carbon paper under it, put it on here and just rub over the parts of the image or draw over the parts of the image that you want transferred. There is an article, so you can find it in Mighty Networks, and it goes into quite a lot of detail of how to do it. And there are various other ways, which I've never used, but I've linked it because if people want to use it, they can. The other thing that I have used is there's an app, which I'll write the name of it in the chat. It's called the DaVinci Eye. And with that app, you can basically pull up a photo on the app and then hold the photo over the lino and you can see it basically, and you can draw it through the photo. So I don't think it's free. I think I paid for it, but it's quite useful for doing this because this isn't, obviously you can't hold, normally I would hold this up to, if it was paper, you'd hold it up to the window and trace, but you can't do that with this, it's too thick. But that app will do it. And I think you can have a free trial, so you can try it out and see what you think. But I think it's quite good for this sort of thing. So once you've got your image on here, so I've just done a really simple one because I was drawing rather than tracing. You literally just push the blade along the side of the image. What you want to do is be left with the image, everything that isn't part of the image carved away. So you would switch to the really fat blades eventually, but when you're just going around the side, when you're going around the edge of your image, it's a good idea to use a thin blade. So you literally just carve away, and soft cut is so easy to carve. Don't put your fingers on this side of it because you will cut them. So be careful. I've never actually cut myself, I don't think, doing this. So it's not that easy to cut yourself, but you basically just go around the edge. And if you were doing something like our fox, which has obviously fur, you can just cut in to the drawing. So I could cut into this here and it will pull away. You have to remove quite a lot. The reason I recommend using soft cut is it's much harder to do this with lino. It's really hard with lino. Soft cut or erasers, it's really easy. So certainly when you're starting out, that's what I recommend. So once you've gone around it with a small blade, I'm obviously not going to do the whole thing. Just let Sharon back in. Once you've gone around it with a small blade, you can then just swap your blade for fatter ones and carve away the whole of the edge. And then when it comes to, so once you've got that all carved away, you can, I mean, if it's an eraser like this, you can just stamp it down. But if it's something quite big like this, you can just put your stamp ink on the image, put paper on top. So I'm just looking, have I got any paper handy? I do. So you'd put this, you'll stamp your ink onto the image, put paper on top, and then just
Can you
rub
move it up a
and
little
pull it
bit,
away in your
Helen?
image. Oh, sorry, am I doing it too low? Yeah, thank you. So you would stamp that. So just put your stamp pad all over the image, then lay paper on top and rub on it. And when you pull it away, you'll have a printed image on there. It's easier because with soft cut, you can't really stamp it that way because it's quite soft and it won't be flat. So it's much easier to just lay it flat and put the paper on top. So do it that way around. When I first started, I did it the other way and I couldn't get a clean print. And it's because you have to do it this way around. Just lay that on top, rub it, and then you'll have a print on there. You need to take quite a lot. You need to go down almost to the bottom of this when you're doing it. So if you do a stamp and you've still got lines around the edge here, it just means you need to go in and take more of the soft cut away. So obviously I haven't got one completed. I did have one. What did I do with the other? Oh, this was the one that I had started to do. Yeah. So in fact, I wonder if that will show. This is one I did a long time ago, and it's a bear. And I've carved around the edge, but I don't think I carved enough. No, I didn't. You can still see. So I never finished it, and I will go back and finish it. But the idea is, so here where we've got fur or claws, you can just go in and carve it away to give the sense of fur. But around the edges here, I've still got some sticking up. So if I did a print of this, it would have lines around the edges. So I need to take more and more of this off, and I haven't finished it. But I do have a
looks
selfie
really
one
fun.
somewhere. I did a selfie with it, but it's fun to do. It's not very expensive. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. But as I say, I have a whole box of ones. I was trying to find it so I could show you, but I couldn't find it. But I do have a box somewhere. And when I do really small ones, it's things like birds and flowers and leaves. So for that sort of size of eraser, you would do something quite simple, but it's very effective. I find
And those
erasers
tools,
easier than...
those blades in that kit will work on your eraser pretty well.
Yeah. They'll be fine.
Good. All right.
So they work very well. I mean, when I used to do it, I would get different kinds of erasers and try different ones to see which ones worked best. But I don't think there was very much difference between any of them. So I'm just going to get rid of my bits of lino. So simply, that's what you do. You go through the same process of drawing something in black and white. It's just how you transfer it to your iPad that's more complicated. So I'm going to switch to my iPad screen there. Oh, is it not? It's not cooperating now. Come on. Ah, there we are. Just needed waking up because I was doing something else. So I'm just going to open it up. So we're going to go back to Procreate. And I'll try and remember as we're doing the stamp in Procreate to just say how to do it with Lino as well. But I thought I'd start off with Procreate with some of the functions that we didn't do last week. So if we start just by making a new canvas. So I haven't got the pointer. There's the pointer. So up here, and we can just start with a square one because we'll use a square one anyway for doing our stamp. And any kind of color over here doesn't really matter because I'm just going to be showing you the functions. So I'll just go for a blue. So some of the things we didn't talk about last week, which are really useful, if you go over to your wrench and open canvas, I just couldn't remember then which one it was. If you open canvas, this one, and then click on the drawing guide. So there is an animation and page assist, and I've never used either. Don't know how to use them. But if you draw on the drawing guide, what then happens is you will get this canvas. And you can change that to whatever you want. We'll do some drawing next week with gridding. And I'm just checking, is that someone else? No. We'll do some drawing with gridding. So we'll use the grid, but there are other, if you click on edit drawing guide, there are other drawing guides that you can use. So when you click that, this menu appears. And if you click on the different buttons, so obviously this is just a grid, but if you go on that isometric, you get a different grid, a grid made up of triangles that you might want to use. You get a perspective grid, which appears when you start to draw something. So I've literally just tapped the screen and this appears. So if you tap your screen somewhere, it will appear, and it will give you 2 or 3 angle perspective. I don't know if any of you have ever done Lepan's class in Sketchbook Skool, but he uses, I think he uses circular. This doesn't have circular perspective, but I do think he uses that. Oh, I'm just letting Deb back in the room. Hi, did we lose you, Deb? Happens all the time to me. So I was just, let me go back so that I don't know at what point you left, but I'll go back. And so we've got a canvas. We've just made a square canvas. I'm just going to, and then we were looking at the drawing guide. And then I clicked on, so I enabled the drawing guide just by toggling it over there, and then clicked on edit drawing guide. And I was just showing the different kinds of drawing guides you can use. So okay. You can, this one, I'm on the isometric one, and wherever you tap on the screen in a line, I think it will only give me 3 points. It will give you perspective and you can move it around. So if you want to draw with perspective, you would probably just have one. Yeah, you just have 1 point. unless you were doing something very fancy. There are some artists who do 3-point perspective. That one's pretty good. You can see the perspective going down away here and away there. In fact, I can make it darker. So up here, this is the color of your guide. So if you can make it quite a lot darker, so it's more visible. Or if it annoys you being really dark, you can make it lighter. You just toggle this up and down for what you want. So the other one is symmetry, and I really like the symmetry. So if in theory, if you're drawing a face, you could just draw one side. And I've done that before to see how it looks. You could just draw one side, because everything that you draw on this side, if I can get it, will appear on the other side once you're in the drawing image. I'm just looking, yeah, so the options here, you can have all different kinds of symmetry. So I got that just by clicking options. And the radial symmetry is really nice because you can do mandalas, I don't know how you pronounce them, but you can draw them with this, and I'll show you. So you can also have rotational symmetry. It's really fun just to play with these different things and see what they do, but I'm going to take that one. So now, once you go out, the lines are still on your, so I just went back to my canvas. The lines are still on your canvas, and everything I draw here, oh, I've got my bird stamp. And straight away, I didn't realize I had my bird stamp. I thought I just had a.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really fun to play around and see what you can do. Sometimes I've done things where I've been in meetings and I have been listening to the meeting, but I needed something to do with my hands, and I just kind of doodled and created. So you can just doodle mindlessly almost, and you create these lovely, lovely mandalas, and you can obviously change the color, and it's just fun. I mean, I guess there are uses for it that are more than fun, but I just use it for fun. I go back. The grid I use for drawing because it's really useful. The perspective I've never used, but I can imagine it would be really useful. I just haven't used it. And whatever, if you go out, if you printed that as it was, the lines don't show up. So although they're there, they won't show up when you print it, which is really useful because it looks like you're a genius who can just do things. Do things so they're perfect all the way around. And if you want to just remove it, you just click toggle here, turn it off, and cancel up there, and then it will be gone. In fact, that hasn't taken it away. Oh, I know, I remember, yes. No, you have to turn it off over here in the layer menu. So you're like, yeah. So if you look, drawing assist is ticked. So if you just tap on that, it will untick it. And now it's gone. You can still see the lines, but the drawing assist is gone. It won't. So I can show you, in fact. If I use a different color, see, there's now no drawing assist. So it's fun to experiment. I really recommend playing around with it. Yes, if you want to turn it off completely, you just go here and turn off drawing guide, and then it's gone. I couldn't remember how I got rid of it, but now I know. But it's really useful. And it's fun. And definitely I've experimented with faces. Sometimes, you know, when you're drawing someone who you think has a really symmetrical face, it's quite fun to try that. And you realize that almost no one has a really symmetrical face, but it's a fun thing to do. So I'm just going to clear that layer. And the other thing was quick shape, which I know in other classes I've talked about quick shape, but quick shape is basically when you draw something. So I've drawn a circle. If you hold and don't let go, then it will create. So it's created an oval for me there. It didn't want an oval. I wanted a circle. So if you go up here and just tap on that arrow, it asks you, do you want a circle or do you want an ellipse? So if I say circle, it then turns it into a circle. So that can be really useful. Yeah, I don't use it that much, but sometimes if I'm really struggling to get an eye really circular, you know, that when I'm doing it in my sketchbook, I use a circle stencil. So this is effectively the same thing. And you can make that larger or smaller by just holding on to one of the blue tabs and moving it in and out. So I've ended up with an ellipse again. And then if I tap circle again, it'll take it back to being a circle. If you want to keep the circle and make it smaller, then just tap on that arrow up there, because then you get that square and you can then just hold the corner of the square and make it smaller. So it's just a really helpful thing to do. All these other things at the bottom can also be quite helpful. So sometimes if you decided you wanted to make a pattern and you drew something and you wanted it somewhere else in your pattern design, but you want it facing the other way, then you can just flip it. You can flip it horizontally, you can flip it vertically. Obviously that's not going to work with a circle, but if I draw something else, so if I did, I don't know, that, and then if I'm just going to tap down here, flip horizontal, flip vertical, and it will move things around. It'll also rotate them. So it's quite useful if you're doing a pattern and you want the same element in it, but you want it somewhere else. And you want it, so it looks, it's the same thing. So it might be our fox stamp, but you want it facing the other way. You can just use these to make it face the other way. Fit to canvas, obviously, just fits it to the canvas. I don't know what bicubic is. I've got no idea. I've never used it and I don't know what it is. The main thing here is to understand the difference between freeform and uniform. So if you've got, let me just get rid of, I'm going to just erase the triangle. I need a bigger eraser. So if you've got a circle and you want to make it smaller, I've just said that you can do it this way. If you have it on uniform, it will make the circle smaller and it will keep the circle shape, because it's decreasing the size. It's decreasing the size at width ways and height ways. I don't know how you say that, but it's decreasing it uniformly. If you go on to freeform here, then it will make an ellipse as you move it, because I'm only, unless you're very good and can keep it exactly, you can fiddle about to get it more or less the right size like there. So I'm just moving this one dot here, but it won't keep it uniform. So if you want something to be uniform, often I don't. So I often, it automatically defaults to uniform, but sometimes you might want freeform. You might want to change the shape. So say you've drawn an eye in a portrait and you realize that the eye isn't quite the right shape. You would want freeform to kind of change the shape of it. So they're useful to know the difference. I mean, I've played with these things, but I've never used them properly. Distort or warp. I think that's more for people doing illustrations and animation. But the freeform and uniform is important. And snapping just snaps things to a grid. You can, if you click on that, you can make things snap to the edges of the page and or to each other. Again, I almost never use that, but I know it's there. So the only other thing was this tool menu up here. So if you tap that menu, you get all kinds of different things. And I do play around with them again to see what they do sometimes. But the one I use the most, or the ones I use the most, are these two, the color balance. So if let me draw something else in a different color. So if I do that, if you then go onto this menu and you pull up color balance, you'll see that this appears at the bottom and you can change the colors. So just by moving those dots up and down the line. So it's not making any difference to my reds, but it should make a difference. It really isn't actually. Why is it not making a difference? I don't understand. Oh, because I've got shadows, midtones. Yeah. So if it doesn't work, click over here and make sure, because there are only a couple of things in there, there's no shadows basically. So we just want it on midtones. And then if you move up and down here, once you're on midtones, you can change the color. So, and you can do that with anything you do. So if you did do a full drawing, you could go on here and play around and see what different colors you could get. And I've quite often done a drawing and then put it into 2 or 3 different, so I've duplicated it and played with the color balance. So I've got 2 or 3 different color schemes. The other thing here is the curves. So this does basically the same thing. You just hold on to that line and move it around. It's a bit, I don't know if you're supposed to do it this way, but this is the way I always do it. And again, you can just move it. You've got a bit more flexibility here because you can move it around the whole shape and just change the color. So I'm just looking at that. Any others? Hue, saturation, and brightness again is the same. When you do that, you get the 3 bars and you can just move and change color that way. So it can be fun, especially if you finish something and you're really not happy with the color of it. You can just go and play. And if you've got things in different layers, you can change these colors in each layer. Because when we're doing that, it's only applying it to the layer that I'm on. I was just checking to see. Oh, yeah, probably don't need the other thing there. Is there anything else? And the other thing that I use a lot is Gaussian blur, which is, sorry, I'm just going to call it up. It's there. And I use that on hair. So, and when we'll come on and do some drawing next week, I'll show you how to use that. I've seen videos where other people use like the motion blur and the perspective blur, but I've never really used them. Sometimes I use noise. So if a drawing I've done is looks a bit too digital, I'll add a bit of noise to it. So, and there are different kinds of noise that you can experiment with. Noise just makes the image grainier, basically. So suddenly there's grain all over the image. So if something looks a bit too digital, I will add a little bit. I won't add loads, but I'll add a little bit of noise, like maybe about there. But the billows, I don't think I've used the others, to be honest. I guess with those, it won't be uniform. I don't think with any of them it's uniform, actually, looking at this. And I don't know what the turbulence setting, I guess, just makes it stronger or less strong. And channel, I don't know what that means. So so I just use the things I need to use. The other ones, bloom and glitch, do similar kinds of things. They will change. It's not going to do it on this, or you're not going to be able to see it because it's all black and white now. But maybe if I turn it off, clear that layer, and just add color. Let's make this a bit fatter. If I add some color, we can look at bloom and glitch. But really play around, have some fun, because that's how you learn how these things work. I think blooming, you get a particular so with bloom, it's leaving the edge of the color but changing the inside of it, so that you're kind of left just with an edge if you take it a long way up. Yeah. So glitch literally puts glitches on it like that. So I don't use that, but I will play around just to see what it does. So you're not likely to use that. You can sharpen it as well, but I'm not sure that was shown here. No, it won't. I don't really use that. Halftone, you get dots. And chromatic aberration, it does something with the color, I think. No, whatever it does, I'm not doing it here. Oh, it is. Yes, it is. It's giving, I see. It's giving a kind of shadow around the edges that's in a different color. So I use these so rarely that I forget how they work. Clone is where you can take, it's like photoshopping a photo. It's where you can take something from one place and move it to somewhere else. So if I leave that there and then put it over here, it's cloning the pattern. It's recreating the pattern, but over here. I should probably use that more than I do. I don't use that. And liquify used to be my favorite thing. That was one of the first things that they did. And there's so many different things that it does. I don't know all of them. When Procreate first came out, it just really had a couple. I think it had like these first 4, and all the others are new things that you can do. But liquify, you can basically put your pencil on and change the shape of things. And I do use that sometimes. So if I'm doing a portrait, and again, the eye is maybe slightly the wrong shape, I'll use it. But when I use it, I have the size really small and I have the pressure really low, so that it changes things very slightly. So if I've drawn an eye and it's just not quite right, you just want to reshape it a little bit, then liquefy is really useful for just, because you're basically, with that, I'm just dragging things out into a different shape. But obviously, if you're doing that on a portrait, you only want to do a tiny little bit, and it's really useful for doing that. I've never used that. I've tried to use pinch, but I've never found pinch works very well. So, I mean, it's very similar to liquefy, except pinch tends to move things around a spot rather than just moving one side. So yeah, the only one that I really use is push and turn it right down. But you can always, if you do something and if you play with these and you mess up a drawing, just make a duplicate before you start. And if you've got a duplicate, then you can play with one of them. So that's all the tools that I use. I suppose I should talk about the selection tool. I don't use the selection tool, or I mean, I do use it occasionally, but I don't use it very much because I don't like the digital edges that it creates. So the selection tool would be if you want to take a part of your drawing and you want to move it or change it. So if you were drawing a face, again, the only thing that I probably do use it on sometimes is eyes, where if I haven't got them quite straight, I will select one and just move it a little bit. So I'll show you how to use it. So again, you can get it to automatically select. I don't use that. I would always use freehand selection. So once you click that, you just choose freehand, and then if you put your pencil, so I'm going to put my pencil here and just draw around a bit. So you get this line, and whatever is inside, so when you join it up, whatever is inside it, you've selected, and you can do all kinds of things with it. So you can, what I mostly do is move something to another layer. So sometimes if I've drawn on the same layer and I didn't mean to, I can select a bit and put it on a new layer. So once you've selected, you have all the functions at the bottom, so you can remove it, you can copy and paste it. So if you've drawn something, I mean, we'll see this in practice over the next few weeks, but if you've drawn something and you meant to draw it on a separate layer, but that didn't happen for some reason, you hadn't locked your layer, if you just click copy and paste and then go to your layer menu, you'll see that it's put the selection on another layer. It's still there on that layer too, because we copied, we didn't cut, but you can remove it and you work on the one on this layer if that's what you want to do. So it's quite useful for moving things, for moving things to different layers if you haven't put them on the right layer to start with. The other thing I will sometimes use it for, so I'm going to do another circle here, is just to move something slightly. And to do that, once you've selected it, you click on that arrow here, and only that bit is selected. So I can then move it to wherever I want it. And the other bit, the bit underneath, it wouldn't be there. It's there now because I've got two layers. Let me remove that layer and let me do it again so that you can see properly. So I'm going to draw a circle around it. And then I'm going to click the arrow, and it only gives you that bit. Whereas if you didn't have a selection and you click the arrow, it selected everything. It selected my whole canvas. So if there's just a bit you want to move, you need to use selection to do that. So that can be useful. And you can select particular shapes, like, rectangle or an ellipse, if you want to. The selection tool is much more sophisticated than I've just shown you, but I don't use it for the sophisticated things. So if you're interested to use it more, you can go onto YouTube and find lots of videos on how to use it. When I say it's more sophisticated, you can start out. So let me do automatic and I'll show you. So if you click to automatic, and for most of these functions, you just put your pencil on one side of the canvas and move it. And that's how. So if I put my pencil here, see, it's selected the whole thing. And it says it's selected. I don't think you can see on that screen, but on the top of my canvas, it said selection threshold is 100%. So it selected everything. If you don't want it to select everything, if you put your pencil over here and move it down, it will, there we are, you can see it's selecting less and less. So, oh, sorry, I just lost my earbud. But on this, because it's not a line drawing, it's selected everything anyway. But if you had a line drawing or something, it would select bits of it. You can find, I don't use it very much, so I'm not very good with it because I don't use it. I would always rather, so people often select and only draw within the selection. I don't do that because, you know, you can see here, you get these really smooth edges and it just doesn't look real. So I would always much rather just draw and then erase, like you do in a sketchbook, which is why I don't use it much. But I used to never use it, and then I learned that there were things that it's quite helpful for. So I'm going to clear my layer. Does all of that make sense? If it doesn't, if you have,
I have a question.
Yeah.
On the automatic selection.
Yeah.
So it seems to put so I drew like a couple of eyes, a line for a nose and a mouth,
Yeah,
and a beard, and so when I put it on, everything turned blue. Does that mean it's selected everything?
yes, yeah. And you can, if you look at the bottom of the screen here,
Yeah.
there's a plus and a minus sign. So if you don't want to use the selection threshold, you can see it's just selected all my screen, but you can remove bits, which it's not letting me because I haven't got a drawing on the canvas. But if you use the plus and minus, it will select more or less. I don't know if that's working for you. Maybe not. I'm not great on selection because I don't use it so much, but I take it from the it's done something different.
Yeah, it looks like it turned the lines yellow. So I don't know. I'll have to play with it. It's I've always had trouble with that particular thing.
Yeah,
and
I've always had trouble with selection, and I mean, I don't like using it. Yeah,
I don't like the automatic, and I've used it with freehand to circle an eye and then move an eye.
You can move them slightly, and it's really useful. I mean, those are functions that I find really useful, but I don't find using it to kind of erase the edges and stuff really helpful. But definitely play with it and go look for a video if you want to. Yeah, just go to YouTube and put in Procreate selection tool and you'll find tons of videos. So I have done courses where I've had to use it. And so I've used it while I've been doing courses, but then as soon as it's finished, I don't use it anymore.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So we're going to do our fox stamp. So we need a square canvas that's clear, doesn't have anything on it. And we're going to bring in, oh, actually, I haven't shown you add text. Maybe I'll just do add text as well, because that's something that's really useful. And when you first start doing it, it's a bit tricky to get your head around how it works. So it's this button here. So it's the first menu, and it's the first menu under the first icon. And then the bottom here, you can see add text. And if you click on that, you will get this text box. And so you can just type over it. At the bottom here, I've got the options of choosing font, a keyboard. I don't bother with the font until I've done the text. So I will always just open my keyboard and type in what I want. So if I just put in hello, and then if you then select it. So I've just selected it just by tapping. So I've just tapped in that box. I've tapped in the box here, and immediately this menu appears. So have you got that? Does that work? Yeah, cool. Yeah. So once the menu appears, then I'll go to keyboard. I'm trying to go to keyboard. No, it's not keyboard. It's, yeah, that's it. So tap on the font. Sorry, I'm going to do it again. I'm trying to do it again. I need to close down what I've got. Up here, this is the font. So if you just tap on the font, it will open a whole menu for you. I found it. And that's how so it's a bit complicated. You have to select it again as well to get it to change the size and do things with it. So if you reselect again your text.
I just drew a line through it and it selected it.
Yeah, so then you can come down here and you can go through your fonts, you can go through your style, you can resize it, you can do whatever you want. So let's say I'm going to make it a bit bigger and I want a different font. That font is unreadable. I have a few extra fonts that I've bought at various times. I don't like that one either. Yeah, let's go with that one. So you have all these other things that you can do as well. You know, you can cut, paste, you can put it in bold. This one is center it, put it to the left, put it to the right. I usually don't use any of those. I just get it the size that I want. You can lower the opacity. So if you're putting text over something, you might want to, but you can also do that in the layer menu. So you can just play around and get different kinds of text, and then you just click done in the corner here. And then if you look at your layer menu, the text is in a different layer. It automatically puts it in a layer of its own. So you can click the arrow, you can move it around. Once it's there and it's in a layer, you can move it around, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can do everything that you can do with everything else. It just puts it on a different layer, and it's good to have it on a separate layer. So always lock it. Otherwise you'll have to go back to the beginning. But at any point you can go into that layer, you can tap on it and you can change the font. So again, if you can go down to the AA here and it'll give you font options. So change the color, you can, whatever you like, you can do those things to it. So it's nice. It wasn't in Procreate for a long time, and everybody was asking for it. And so they eventually brought in that function, and I find it quite useful. And sometimes you can just put in letters if you want something to look like freehand text. You can put in the layers in the text in a layer, and then you can draw over it. So put a layer on top and draw over the text in using whatever you want, using a brush or whatever. But it really helps with, for example, spacing. If you're doing something and you're not sure about the spacing of the letters, you can just put it in text and then draw over it in another layer freehand. And then it looks more freehand. I mean, I can show you. Let's go back. So let me put the text back in. So to do that, I would just add a layer on top, choose whatever color I wanted, choose whatever brush I wanted. Say I wanted to do it with, I mean, they've got calligraphy brushes. Say I wanted to do it with a big fat calligraphy brush. So in the next layer, why is it going white? I don't understand. Maybe I won't use that brush. I'll use a brush. There we are. I'll use a different brush. There we are. So even if you just want the spacing, it will give you the spacing, and then you can remove the text layer. So turn that off, and it looks as though you've done this freehand drawing really well spaced.
Well, that's really handy. It's like building
really
your own
handy.
template.
Yeah, it's really handy. So I recommend playing with that. I find it really useful. So most times when I use text, I draw it myself, but I use the text function to give me a template because it will space it out right. And you can make it, if I go back again, you can space it how it fits your canvas.
Right.
So you can get it where you want it. Presuming there is an image underneath, you can move it to where you want. And then just in the next layer, just draw over it and then remove that layer. It's really handy. So the text function is pretty cool. So that's all the functions. So that's good. We have plenty of time. We're gonna do our fox. So for this, we're gonna go up here and we're gonna use the insert a photo. You might not know as well, maybe I'll go and show you this too. If you don't want, say you were gonna create a video, export a video of your time-lapse drawing, and you don't want people to see your photo or to know that you've inserted a photo. If you swipe this to the left, you can put in a private photo. So that photo, it just goes straight to your photo album, same as all the others. But in your time-lapse video, you won't see that photo. So if you've ever seen people's Procreate drawings and they've done really amazing hyper-realistic drawings, they might have used this function. So I'm just letting you know that you can do that. Then it looks like you've just done this incredible drawing in half an hour, when actually they've been drawing over a photo.
That's fun.
So you can do that. So I'm going to go and find, so we want the fox image, which is there. So if you do insert a photo, it will take you, oh, what have I got behind it? Oh, I've coloured that layer somehow. Don't know why I did that. So we've got the fox, and we want him to be as big as he can in here, because we can make the stamp smaller or larger. But if he's this small, then he's only going to be a tiny part of the stamp that we create. So we want him to be full size, really. So if you go over to here, tap on that, open up the menu, and you can just choose fit to canvas there. And in fact, I'm going to make him larger still. So that's fit him to the canvas, but I want him to fill as much of the square as possible. So I'm going to use my fingers, or you can just tap on the blue dots in the corner. Maybe I'll do it that way. Tap on the blue dots and just make him a bit bigger. So I need to make my canvas smaller. Sorry, I can't quite get to the bottom of my canvas because of the menu, so I'm going to do it again. So I'm making him as big as I can with just a little edge around to fit that canvas. That's probably good. So then we want a new layer above. So you're going to come over here and click the plus to get a new layer. So we're going to draw on the new layer. We're going to draw him in black. So I need to go and change my colors, choose a black up here. So to get a black, you just go to the bottom corner of any color box, doesn't matter what the box is. It will always be black. Oh, Sharon, you asked me last week and I looked it up. Let me go back, hold on. What these two colors are. Theoretically, I don't understand why this, oh, maybe, yeah, because I haven't drawn anything on this canvas. So this color is the last one you used, and this color is the one you've just selected. So that's what they're supposed to represent. I don't think that always happens. I think it's saying white because I just had a white canvas with nothing on it. So, but yeah, that one is supposed to be the last color you used, and this one is the one you've just selected. And the idea is that you can compare them up there and see if the colors go together. I think that's the idea.
And you could tap them too. I think you could go back and forth.
Yeah, you can. You can go back to your last color.
If it shows you the right one.
Yes, that's what it does. I think if you use, I have a method where I put the Copic palette into my drawing, and I'm not sure it works with that because I haven't selected from a palette. So this is if you're selecting from a palette. So yeah, if you put one into your canvas and draw from that, I'm not sure that that will work up here, because often when I do that, the colors don't appear here. Yeah, I don't know why not, but they don't. So increasingly, I'm using a palettes more than the one that I import into the picture. So I'm going to make, so we need to, actually, we don't need to make him paler, do we? He's fine as he is. So I'm going to lock the fox layer. So swipe to the left and lock it so that I don't draw on that layer. And then in layer 2, I'm just going to go back to the brushes we were using last week. I'm just going to use the studio pen with black, and I'm just going to go around his, maybe it won't show up, that's why. Yeah, okay. I was trying to think why I had written down that I needed to make him more opaque, and it's because you can't see very well. Can't see the black very well on top. So I'm going to unlock this layer, and I'm going to reduce the opacity. So click on the N. You don't want him too light because it will be hard to see, but maybe that's about 70-ish%, which is enough. And then lock it again. So now on the layer above, we're going to draw. So my pen is much too big. So we're going to draw just his outline. Ideally, leaving no gaps. I always have gaps. If you have no gaps, then you can just color fill with black at the end. So that's why. Don't worry about the fur. We can add the fur in. So, at the bottom here where his feet are, obviously you can't see them. So you just have to make it up. I mean, when I did the last stamp of this, I put in the grass. So you can put in the grass if that's easier. Or you can give him feet. I went and looked at some feet. So you could give him a foot like that.
Foxes generally have feet
They
like
have little
cats.
claws, don't they? Yeah. So, but I think the one I did before, in fact, I can go and look. I'm fairly sure. Oh, it's in my brushes, isn't it? Ah, I can't see it from here. There we are. Yeah, I just added grass, so there's just little bits of grass, so you can't see his feet. Once we have his outline done and there's no gaps, I've got the wrong pen now. Don't mind me, I'm using the wrong pen. So here I've got a little gap, so I need to just make sure that gap is filled. I've got another gap. I've got little gaps all around his feet. I'm not very good at doing joined up drawings. You have to kind of make sure there's no gap, because if you don't, then colour fill will fill the whole canvas rather than just the fox shape. So once you've got the shape outlined, you can just, if you just hold your pencil on the black and drag it across, it should, there we are, it filled just that space. If it hasn't filled everything, then when you do that, you get this little menu at the top which says continue filling. It's just disappeared from mine, but it was there. So you can just continue filling it. So once you're at this point, we need to make this a bit opaque so that we can see through it to the drawing below. So I'm just going to click the N again. And I don't want it totally opaque because I want to know where I've drawn, but maybe to around there. So now we're going to add in his features. So he needs eyes. So you can make it bigger and come right in, and you can make your pen smaller if you need to. And just draw in.
You use white for that?
Sorry, yes, I'm just thinking that's not working. I need to be using white, yeah. So draw it in with white. And sorry, I'm being I've got a bit of a migraine today, so I'm a bit more confused with what I'm doing than usual. So you can draw in the little highlight however you want. You can refine this later. So we're drawing in his eye, we can draw in his nose. Drawing his little mouth here. And you can be as realistic or unrealistic as you want to be. I always add in whiskers. So this is why I quite like this pen, because it's got a little bit of a taper to it. But we're not trying to do something hyper realistic. We're trying to do something that is kind of an impression of the fox. So I'll put those lines in. I'll put in lines for his ears, and I'm going to come from the outside just to make sure those lines come in right. So we're going to put these lines in here. And then you can, for the fur, you can just add little marks. And you can just carry on. You can add as much or as little as you want. So he does need legs. Now, I tend to make these lines that separate different parts of his body quite chunky, because if you were carving, they would be. So actually, if we want it to look a lot like a rubber stamp, then they would be quite chunky. So the more you do that, so I'm just going to add some grass in here. And then I like to do quite a lot of the fur. So I tend to do the fur around the edges. So to do that, I just kind of cut in. In fact, maybe I should go the other way. Looking at it, yeah, it's kind of. In fact, I'm going to do that with black. So we'll do that in a minute with black. We'll carry on with the white first of all. So with the white, I'm just going to go around the edges of where I can see fur around him. So if you were doing this, if you're doing this with a piece of lino, you're just cutting in short, quick strokes rather than doing a whole line. I think in the practice one I did for this, I did a lot of fur. Yes, I did. I'm looking at it. Lots and lots, and maybe we'll add a bit more. And it doesn't matter if they cross over and touch each other, because obviously fur does.
What is it, Jonesy?
Oops, sorry. My cat
That's
is
okay.
just going crazy.
My dog's just come in to ask me for dinner as well. He's sitting here looking. Please feed me. Stop doing what you're doing. I want to be fed. So you can spend as long on this as you want. I find it quite fun. This is the bit that I really like. So for the edges, because I want the fur to show on the edges, I'm going to switch back to black. And then just add fur. So I'm just kind of doing like sweeping little strokes, but all around the edge. And they're probably so fine that they're, yeah, maybe I'm doing them a bit too fine. They won't look like like a print. Because if I was doing it, obviously if I was cutting a lino cut stamp, I probably couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't cut things this fine. Maybe if I was a master printer. But, so
Probably have machines that do that now.
yeah, I'm going to undo that because I just went wrong. Yeah, though I follow lots of people on Instagram who carve their own. I mean, there's a wonderful woman who does the most amazing woodcuts. I've never tried cutting wood. I imagine it's quite hard work, but just really beautiful. Vanessa Luback is her name. She does the most beautiful woodcuts. So I'm going to add some fur here. I'm going to add a bit more here. So I just switch between black and white for whatever I think I need to do. And usually it quite quickly ends up looking, oh, I need black there, not white. So if you're doing anything that's going outside of around the edges of the print, you need black because you're extending the edges of your drawing. But inside you need white because you're cutting it out effectively. That's probably enough. Now, if you want to see how it looks, just turn off the drawing underneath. And he's a bit chunkier than the last one I did, but he looks fine. And then I'm going to turn the opacity back up so it's fully black. So, I mean, obviously you can work on drawing it for as long as you like. But once you've got something, oh, I need some grass at the bottom, don't I? I don't need the picture though to do that. So, because I'm just looking and yeah. I mean, his nose looks more like a pig than a fox from what I've done. But the good thing about drawing just in black and white is you can just go in and change it if you need to. So I'm going to make his nose a little bit bigger. I think that's fine. So how are you getting on?
I'm good.
I don't want to, what Sharon says, you're not getting solid black. Oh. Is that because you've lowered the opacity? You're getting weird colours, not solid black. I wonder why. Do you want to check the menu, the opacity menu, which is over here? So it's the N on the layer you're drawing on, and turn it all the way up. So make sure this is on normal. So that needs to be on normal, and that needs to be all the way up for solid black. Otherwise, I'm trying to think.
Nothing happened.
When I click the N, nothing happens. Oh, how weird.
Is it locked?
Is it locked? Yes. Is the layer locked? So you can tell by, sorry, I realize I'm showing things on the Facebook screen, not this screen, so you can't see. So you need to click on the N there on the layer you're drawing on. So if you click on the N, it should open up and you should get these, and just make sure it's normal, because if it's been shifted to something else, you will get weird colors. It needs to be normal. So this needs to be on maximum, and this needs to be on normal. And then you can just click the N to close it up. In fact, if you had an N, it must have been on normal, because it has different letters if you've
Yeah.
got something else. Can you just click on this box here and turn off your picture and then see how it looks? Because then you've got rid of the photo and you can see.
I was clicking the box.
Yeah.
Oh, instead of N, should we click the box instead of N?
Yeah. Yeah, clicking the box will just make it disappear. So if you do that, it just disappears. And then click it again and it'll reappear.
She had a question earlier, but I lost my chat because I got dropped out. Something about she
it
couldn't
wouldn't rename. Yeah, I'll use the
she
camera
couldn't
on my
rename,
iPad.
yeah.
Can't get it to let me rename mine. I don't know. Yeah, I don't
Couldn't
know.
rename brushes, it was.
Oh, I see. It was renaming a brush. I mean, if you want to rename a layer, you just tap on the name, and the first thing that comes up is rename. You can't do that with the background, but with any other, you should be able to just rename. Going to start over, yeah. I mean, we can do it again. What time is it? We have plenty of time. Let's do it again. So let's go back to basics. I'm going to leave this one and I'm going to open a new one, which I have here. So add the photo. Where's my album? There it is. So you just click on the photo that you want. And once you've got it, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I'm just trying to make my canvas a bit smaller so I can get to the edges. And then just pull on the edges here to get it to fill your screen. And then if you turn that off, it's sitting on your screen. So then you want to layer above it. So for this layer, you want to click on the N and you want to lower the opacity a bit. So basically so that it's easier to see when you're drawing over it. That's why we do that. Make sure it stays on normal. And then you can tap the N again and it should disappear. And then you want to lock it so you don't draw on it. So lock it by moving to the left, lock. And you should get that little padlock symbol that tells you it's locked. And then we're going to draw on this layer. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. I've got a black pen. I've got the studio pen. I'm going to make it a bit smaller. So at the moment I've got it on about 12%. I'm going to move it down to about 8 because my last one was a bit chunky. And then you just need to, so you should have solid dark black now when you're drawing with the pen. So then just go around the edges. Try and make sure that there's no gaps. I just left a gap there as I said that. So it doesn't matter if you have to take your pencil off the screen, that's fine. Just make sure that when you rejoin it, go around, there's no gaps. So I'm terrible for leaving gaps. As I'm going around here, I'm leaving gaps everywhere. And I'll show you what happens if you leave gaps and why it's so important not to have them. Oh, that's not right, is it? So if you have a gap, I'm going to make a very obvious gap here. So if you have a gap, then we do the drag. We drag the black from here to there to fill it up. If there's a gap in the line you've drawn, it will do that. It just turns your whole canvas black. And that's not what you want. You want it to fill the fox shape and just the fox shape. So I'm going to fill that gap there. If it does it again, then I've got a gap somewhere else that I haven't seen. I can see one down there. Sometimes you've got tiny, tiny little gaps between where these lines join. So if it fills the whole canvas, just go back, use this menu here, just click on the back arrow and it will take you back and then just check and fill in all your gaps. There we are. So I filled in all the gaps because only the fox is filled up. Brilliant, Sharon. Sharon saying success. So it's worked.
Yay.
Yay.
Right, Sharon.
Yeah. So at this point, I think I might just carry on and do the fur around the sides before I do anything else. So for the fur, I just do lots of little obviously we're doing this in class, so we don't have that much time. But when I did the other one, the practice one, I spent a long time on the fur, just trying to get it to look realistic. I mean, you know, it's not meant to be hyper realistic, so you could not do any fur if you didn't want to, but I like it. So, and with this brush, with the studio pen, if you press down, you get a thicker line. So what I'm trying to do around the edge here is start off with a thicker line and then have it go lighter. So press down quite hard, but then you get a better taper the harder you press. But I'm also realizing that some of his fur is just sticking straight out here. So I'm going to try and do that. And then right down at the bottom, there isn't really very much fur that I can see around the edges. So there is fur on the top of his head here. So, I mean, if you really zoom into your drawing, you can see where there's bits of fur. So that's a good guide as to where you need to add it. And then once you've done the fur on the outside, you need to lower the opacity. So again, we're going up here to the N, tapping on the N. We're not changing anything else. We're just moving the opacity down just so that we can see through. So probably just that much. So I can still see where my stamp is, but I can see the features through it. And then I'm going to switch to white. And I'm going to carve out. So when you're doing the lines kind of around the ears and stuff, I literally start outside the drawing, somewhere like here, so that I know my line goes the whole way. And also if you do that, it's easier to lift it up and get a taper at the end, and it won't show at all in the final stamp. So you can just do this.
That's a handy tip.
Yeah, it doesn't show, so you can do that as much as you want. And I find it easier. I find it much easier to draw anything if you're starting on the outside and drawing it. I like those eyes better than the last ones I did. So I'm just going to put little lines in for the start of his nose. And then, so he has a nice little highlight on his nose there, doesn't he? So maybe I'll add that in. So you can add as much or as little detail as you want. You might just want to do a silhouette, not put anything in it. Or you can experiment with different things. You could get this far and then think, okay, I'm going to duplicate this and do 2 or 3 with trying out different things to see how they look. So I need to do his nose. And then we have the whiskers, which are really important. And if you make mistakes, if you do a line somewhere that you didn't really want it, or it just doesn't look how you want it, I mean, I'm always inclined to just leave them, because that's what cutting a lino print is like. You know, I don't think I've ever cut a print that hasn't had a mistake in it. So in a sense, you're kind of staying truer to the ideal and process of lino printing if you leave those little errors in it. So you can, if you want to do, if you want the fur to be finer than the main outlines of his face, you can just reduce, you can just make your brush smaller here and have, I mean, I'm not bothering, but you can. And if at any point while you're doing this, you just want to see what it looks like, just turn off the other layer here. Go up here, turn off that one, and then you can see what you've got. And turn it back on to carry on. But you can always look and see how it's going as you do it. Oh, I haven't done his legs. So again, I'm going to come from the outside here to go up to his legs, just because I want a nice clean line. The same here. There we are. I mean, I guess the one thing with this is if you're doing fur and you're going to do the grass at the bottom, you need the stroke that you do for the grass to be slightly different from the fur. just so it doesn't look like fur. And I just press quite hard when I'm doing that. So if I do that, it's quite a lot thicker, the line. So it doesn't look so much like fur. Probably could make it thicker still. So generally when I'm doing fur for something like this, I just want to give an impression that there's fur there. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you could. If you wanted to, you could do way more. That's probably as much as I'm going to do. So once you reach this point, you can open up your layer menu again, turn off the picture, see what you think. And I'm quite happy with that. Oh, I've just gone back by accident. No, don't do that. There we are. If you're happy with it at that point, you're going to go back up here. You're going to increase the opacity again to 100, so it's black. And you can make any little changes that, you know, if there's changes you want to make. I often think that the final stage is best to just not have the photo and just make it look the way you want to look, rather than just following the lines of the photo. So at this point, I'll probably spend maybe 5 minutes just tidying it up. So that means that if I've got white lines I want to get rid of, I'll just draw over them with black. So you just turn to black, and you can, so I'd say I didn't like these lines here. You could just draw over them and they'll go, and then add new ones with white. But usually towards the end, I'll stop using the photo, because also you want it to look the way, yeah, like something you've done. You want it to be part of your own imagination. So I'm actually going to make some of these lines for the features a bit thicker, because I think they're a bit thin. Oh, I really didn't mean to do it like that though. So I'm not doing a particularly good job, but we can come in and just make them thicker so that it's really obvious that that's his legs and not something else. And I might do the same around the eyes. I mean, really, if you're doing this, the easiest way of doing it is to use a different size brush as you go along. Just going to erase that bit there. So, but you know, there's my fox. I'm quite happy with him. So I said I would show you, if you've already made a stamp, there's a really easy way to make another stamp. So I'll show you that, because last week we did how to make a stamp from scratch. But if you've already made a stamp, you can just open it up, go to whichever stamp you want. Doesn't really matter. You go to one of your stamps. So say the bird, and swipe it. So the stamp that you used last week, swipe it to the left and make a duplicate. So now you've got a duplicate. We're going to go back to this image, and I'll show you the export way, but first of all, we'll just do the copy and paste. So you can tap on your screen with 3 fingers and swipe down, and this menu comes up. Or you can just go on the layer and tap on the layer, and it'll come up there. And we basically want to copy. So
Aren't we inverting?
Oh yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you told me to do that. Yeah, we're inverted first.
I do the same thing. I'm so excited to get what I want, you know.
I almost always make the stamp and then realize that I should have inverted. So
I have a lot of white stamps.
Yeah. So tap on the layer menu and click invert. Oh, why do I not have black?
We're not there yet.
Oh no, we're not there yet. We're not in the stamps yet. Yes. So with what you've got, copy it. So swipe down and choose copy, or you can go up to the layer menu and choose copy. In that layer menu, he looks like a lovely snow wolf. So then once you've got a copy, just tap on your brush menu, go to the brush that you've just duplicated. So in this case, it's my bird one. Open it. And then when you go to shape, this is what we've got. And all you need to do is edit it and put in the new shape. So import and paste. So import and paste, and there's our stamp.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because everything else is all all the other settings are correct because you did them for the first stamp. So you don't have to go through all the checking the settings and everything because we've already done that. So you just need, yeah, you need a stamp to start with that you can duplicate. And once you've got a stamp brush, you can just literally copy and paste, and there's our fox. And because he's black, we know it's worked. It's right. So there's our fox stamp, and then you can rename it. So to rename it, you can come down to about this brush, and we'll call it Fox 2. And this will already, if you named your last one and signed it, that will still be in because it's a duplicate. You don't have to sign it again. You don't have to sign it anyway, but it's kind of a copyright thing. So you can just put in, I'm going to put in Fox 2 because I've already got a fox. Done.
My preview still shows the other one though.
Oh, it should. Have you saved it?
So
hold
no,
on.
obviously, because I don't have the black. Okay, that's right. Yep. Okay.
So under shape, once you've put it in, you have to click done, and it's saved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Great.
Done.
So
Done.
now we have it. I'm just gonna. Are you still having problems, Deb?
No, sorry.
Oh, who's Sharon? Turn off the layer. Every time I try to rename it, it doesn't work. Is it locked, Sharon? Have you got a padlock on the layer? Because if it's locked, you won't be able to rename it. You have to. Actually, maybe, I don't know if you can rename it if it's locked. Yeah, you can't. It has to be unlocked. So I've just looked at mine and I can't rename it because it's locked. But if I unlock it, so unlock it by swiping to the left and clicking unlock, and then I can rename it. Oh, the brush won't let you rename. Oh, it might be copyrighted. If it's the one you made last week, though, you should be able to do it. Let me go back. If it's the one you made, then there's no copyright. Sometimes if it's one you've bought, you can't rename it. But if it's one you made, I literally just tap on top of it. Yes, it's yours. If you tap on whatever the name is, you should be able to rename it. I don't understand why you can't. So you should be able to just write in.
Yeah, that's how mine works.
Yeah. I don't
The keyboard
understand.
comes up and
yeah, and you can just redo it. The other thing, I'm just aware that we're running out of time, so I wanted to show you the other way of saving. If you don't like doing the copy, you can simply let me get rid of that layer. So you'd have to get rid of your photo, and then you can just export it. So that's again the first icon, and it's the share. And if you share it just as a JPEG, you can just save it here to save image.
And that's when you're exporting the inverted one.
Yeah, you can do either, but yes, once you've done that, it's saved in your photos. So then when you go to the brush, I'll show you here, and you go to shape, and so you shape, edit, and then you import, and it will ask if you want to import from your photos. So you can just do it from your photos, and there it is in my photos. So you can just click that and import it. Or there is a source library. There is a source library as well, which you can play with to create your own brushes. So there's lots of things here you can just go through, and there's both the shape and the grain. So you can play around with these and do all sorts of interesting things. So I have played around.
When you import a brush set that you've purchased, does the source library update for those, or are those proprietary?
Oh, I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's go and see. I've got no idea, but let me find one that I've imported. So these are all imports. Let's open one of these. Oh, no. Open one of these. Shape. No, I can still edit it. Yeah, I can still edit it. It should have the name of the person. Yeah, it does. It has Lisa's Glands, who does lovely brushes. It's got her name. But yeah, you can do that. So yeah, it's really fun to play around.
I bought that Dreamland set
Oh,
last
it's
night, and
lovely. Oh,
I
good gosh,
imported
it's
it this
lovely.
morning and was playing around with them. It's incredible.
I can tell you the best brush in that set is
Yes.
the one is this one, Oscillate Push Down to Blend. I
Under
use that for
fillers?
all my paintings. So it's a filler, yeah, but you get the edge. You get a kind of a really, oh, I can show you. Hold on. Let me
Oscillate.
show
There it
you.
is.
You get a really lovely, I don't know if you can see here, but you get this edge, this slightly darker edge that you often get with you can see it better there, that you often get when you're using watercolor, and it layers like
wow.
watercolor. That is my favorite brush. It's the one I use all the time, and I absolutely love it. And obviously the paper texture is great too.
Wow.
So,
You can see the brush strokes
yeah,
in it.
her brushes are lovely. Hers and True Grit Texture Supply are the ones I absolutely love, both those designers. They're great. Yes, so I was going to remove, let me do that and then just use the stamp. Let me go back to my stamp so you can see the stamp. So he's quite big. You can make him smaller if you want to. Again, you just go into the brush properties. And I'm trying to think, where's the, I think it's in properties, yeah. Yeah, so you can change, is that the size? Yes, brush behavior. So you can make him bigger or you can make him smaller. Whatever you want. Because sometimes I've done them and they've been huge. When I first started doing it, I would often end up with really huge ones that were much too big. And then I learned that you can change the size of it and it's not hard. I think this one, the one I've just done here, if I pull them up, you can see that he's quite a lot bigger than the first one I did, which is there. You can change that preview size as well so that they fit properly in that box. That's at the top here. So you can make that smaller and then you can see more of it in the box. So you could put it all the way down so you can see the whole thing in the box. You can do all those things. I'm looking at it. Oh, it's let you rename though, Sharon. That's good. I don't know why it's done it that way. Maybe it's just being temperamental, but but I'm glad you've been able to do it. That's good. So the one other thing that that we did last week is the texture in the background, but we've done that and I'd much rather spend a couple of minutes just looking at what you've done, showing my face, if you want to share it, because I'm just thinking, and do you want me to turn off recording?
I don't care.
If you're quite happy for it to be in the recording, then.
There we go.
Oh, and isn't he super? That's lovely. You'll start making brushes of everything, I promise you. That's what I do.
Addicted.
It's really, doing flowers is really nice as well.
Yeah, I did one of my,
of those.
I did this one from a painting I'd done a long time
gorgeous.
ago.
That's lovely. Yeah, that's really lovely.
I like 2 years ago I made those mugs, and then
that's lovely.
One of the prompts was coffee, so I pulled that out and did it.
That's great. The other thing I wanted to show, sorry, I'm aware that you can't speak and be heard, Sharon. But if you want to share, I don't know, do say in the chat or put up your hand or
I don't see
whatever the things are that you can do. No. So I was just going to show you.
Oh, she said she can't.
Okay, fair enough. So what I will usually do when I'm doing something like this is obviously add the background. We did that last week, add the shape, but I'll just do it quickly. So I'll go here, open a layer, give me another layer. So that layer needs to go behind your stamp. Oh, I need to turn that one off. And then you can just use any kind of big brush. Sometimes the marker is quite nice. Where's the marker? Is it in sketch? I can never remember if it's in sketching or drawing. It's in neither. It's in inking. Yes, there it is. So in inking, there's a marker. And if you make the marker really big, you can get this really nice kind of textured. It's got a really nice edge to it. Just make a background.
Inking marker?
Yeah, it's a marker in inking. And then you can, if you've got other stamps, so let me just find, I'm just going to change the color and make it maybe the same color as the fox. If you have other stamps, so if you've made, I'm going to have to go find mine. If you've made like flower or leaf stamps, so I have a lot. I can never remember where they are. Where are my, oh, they're right at the bottom, aren't they? Yeah, there they are. There. So you can see I've got a zebra here, I've got a deer, all kinds of different things. I have another fox there. But I find these leaves are really nice. So this is kind of what I drew on the lino. But if you have a leaf stamp, so if I go for this one, you can, oh, that's too big. So if it's too big and you don't want to change the size of the stamp, just tap more gently and it will be smaller because they're pressure, they work on pressure. So did I put that on a new layer? No, I didn't. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to add a new layer up here. So then if you put in things like, I've done it too hard again. No, still doing it too hard. I need to make another one and just make it smaller. So you can add other stamped images. I quite often put 2 sets of leaves around them. And then if you go up here, obviously that's not pointing the way I want, but you just go up here and you can then move it. You just press, I'm just doing the rotate 45 degrees down here. And you can just rotate it till you've got it where you want. And then I'll usually put one on one side and then you can flip that horizontally and rotate that one and put that one down here. So you can move them around and you don't have to keep restamping them. You can just, I mean, you can, this one you could just copy and paste. So you could just use so now I've done that. You can just, I'm just using the 3-finger drag, copy and paste, copy. And then there is another one there. You can't see it, but it's on top of it. But if you click the arrow up here, it doesn't copy. Oh, hold on, here I am saying it's there, but you can't see it. Let me do it again. Why is it not giving me paste? Oh, I have to do copy and paste in 2 moves. For some reason, it's not giving me a copy and paste in the menu. Usually it gives you both. So now I have 2. So you just move it and it will, if I show you the layers, it will put the second one on a different layer. See Sharon saying, going to have to watch this over and over again. Yeah, there's a lot we're covering. So, but when you copy and paste, it puts it in a new layer. So this one, you can just tap on it or click that and it'll move it. And then we can flip it over or flip it however you want it. So you don't have to keep redrawing things if you're using the same things. You can just copy and paste and just move them around with those buttons and it's a lot easier. So, and you can add, you know, we did last week, you can add texture to everything, to the stamps and to what's under here. You can add paper texture. So if we just add the paper texture again, if I can find it, while we still have time, where's my DX? There it is. Oh no, I've got textures. Where's my textures? So I have lots of them saved and I can just tap on one and it's over the top. And then all we do is just pull it from the corner. I've put it in the, obviously I was underneath, in the layer menu, I was underneath the fox. So it's put it underneath the fox, but you can just tap on that and move it up. And then obviously you have to go and lower the opacity and put it on multiply. So multiply, lower the opacity. And there you've got paper texture too. So
that's great.
It's, yeah, it's the more you play with it and the more you have fun with it, the more you'll learn. And don't be scared of trying things that you think might ruin it. Just make a duplicate first so that you've always got it. And that takes us to time. So next week, I'm going to do we're back to the usual time next week. And we're going to do some drawing with grids using the drawing assist. We'll do probably a portrait, but using drawing assist. So, show my face before I finish off here. Thank you very much. It's been fun.
Yes, it has been. Thank you so
I've
much.
had a really
Sharon
nice
says
time.
great class.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing lots of stamps. So you can make lots of cards now for people's birthdays. You can send them digitally or you can print them out. maybe I was thinking I've got a whole list of things that I thought I would talk about as well as just doing the drawing in these classes. And I've got things like how to go to Redbubble and make things that you can sell. And
I'd love to do that. I'd like to make like a pillow cover or something.
Yeah, I've done that lots. Not recently, but I did that lots a few years ago. And it's just, I've made phone cases. That's the thing that I use the most. I make a phone case for my phone with something on it. So you could easily make a phone case with the fox. Yeah, that's not hard to do. So one week we'll do that. We'll go and have a look and we'll play with Redbubble. Oh, stickers. Okay. Sharon says, yeah, you can do stickers at Redbubble. Yeah, right. Definitely. Yeah, you can. It's not cheap, but it's really fun to get your own stuff put on things. And I've definitely done it quite a lot. Yeah, maybe we'll do that in a couple of weeks. I'll make sure that I put it on my list. So thank you very much. I need to stop the recording.